Therefore, beloved, looking forward to these things, be diligent to be found by him in peace, without spot, and blameless. Those are the three final requirements. In peace. No ruptured relationships which you could mend in your family, in the church, even with your unsaved neighbors. Are you living, as far as lies in you, in peace? When Paul speaks about that, he says, keep peace with all men as far as lies in you. There are some situations which it's not our responsibility. But God says, as far as lies in you, let there be no broken relationships. Let there be no unresolved resentments, bitterness. Ruth and I are planning to sell our home in Jerusalem. And it's a house in which there are 4 families living. And there are 2 families on the ground floor that were there long before we were. And our house was built on top of the ground floor house. That's very common in Israel because the Arabs who originally built in stone and built on the bedrock. And so one single dwelling house can support 3 more stories, which is the truth of our house. Anyhow, I'm saying this, I hope this won't get to Israel. I have to be careful, but our downstairs neighbors, both 2 families, are from Morocco. And they're different from the Jews that come from Europe. They have been in many ways permeated by Arab culture. They're not Arabs by any means, but Magdal at least will understand me. There's a saying in Arabic, Ablad da isla jar. Before you ask about the house, ask about the neighbors. If you've ever lived in the Middle East, you'll know just how important that is. So we have had a difficult time with our downstairs neighbors. And this is a little illustration of what I was talking about witchcraft. Because one of the wives, incidentally, out of 2 married couples, 3 ended up in psychiatric care. So you can have some idea of what we went through. But anyhow, one of the ladies downstairs has been a kind of split personality. At times, she would show us real love. When Ruth was rushed off in an ambulance to the hospital about 6 years ago, she rushed out and embraced her and kissed her. And at other times, she's come to us secretly and said, pray for me, for my family. But at other times, and more often than not, she's been a very difficult person to deal with. If she didn't get her way, she would shout and scream. And I mean, she would go on a good half hour. I mean, she didn't run out of breath. And many, many times, she manipulated us. Just for the sake of peace, we would let her have her way. But then there came a situation, and I don't need to go into the details, when she was manipulating us again. She wanted us to do something that we felt we had no obligation to do. And she became really difficult to deal with. Strident, vocal, antagonistic. And I said to Ruth, listen, I am not going to give way to witchcraft. Amen. Absolutely not. I refuse to do that. Yeah. So we prayed a very fervent agreement prayer, driving witchcraft out of that situation. Now, we did not pray it for the sake of our neighbors. I want to make that clear. We prayed it out of purely selfish motives. But something miraculous happened. A little while later, we had to go down and talk to the neighbors, and while the man and an insurance assessor were talking, Ruth and this lady and I sat in their living room. And she spoke Hebrew, so it was a little difficult for us to understand everything, but what she meant was very clear. She said, I want to tell you, I've had asthma. And when I have asthma, I get very nervous. And I shout and scream at people. And she said, forgive me, I'm sorry. Well, I've told that story to Israelis, and they could not believe that an Israeli would ever say that. It's unheard of. But she said it, and she has become a friend. And you see, when I saw God's wisdom, He would not let us move out of that house until we had it right with our neighbors. God cares about living in peace. I'm not saying we were very righteous. I think really we were lacking in Christian grace many times. But God came to our help to save us from a wrong situation. So I want to ask you, how is it between you and your neighbors? You know what the second commandment is? Love your neighbor as yourself. And that really means your neighbor. It's not just a figure of speech. How are you getting on with the people you live closest to? How are you getting on with the people you work next to in the office or the factory? Because if you're preparing for the Lord's coming, you have to do something about it.